Good evening, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well. I'm going to firstly, before I actually read this, um, obviously it's been very warm and very beautiful in the UK, but we've got to think of our animals too. Now, if you've got cats or dogs or very small animals, if you've got big animals, if get one of these bottles and fill it up with water and put it in the freezer and wrap it in a towel and actually lay it on the floor so your cats, your dogs can actually lay next to it and cool down. And obviously damp their paws with damp cloths as well, so especially the pads, the cats and dogs. With small animals like guinea pigs, etc., put like wee small again, put water in the bottle and freeze it and do the same with the guinea pigs. And if it's like a hamster, you just do it with a smaller. Let's shrink the bottle down and or try and get a smaller bottle and do the same. It's about keeping our animals safe from the heat. And please do not, if you drive, you have children, do not leave your cars, your kids, or your animals in a car by themselves, even for a second. Take them out. It's like no, I don't like it because sadly in France, um, some children sadly passed away due to the extreme heat. I mean, it's like one of my sons is in the Netherlands and it was like 40 degrees over there. And it's like obviously he's not used to that kind of weather and he was complaining about the heat. Um, but please stay safe in this heat as much as it's beautiful and things like that. And don't drink too much either because it just dehydrates you. Drink plenty of water. Um, I'm going to be reading, and it was who was it? It was Most Haunted. It was. Does anybody remember that program on the telly? With Yvette Fielding and her husband and the psychic. Um, I can't remember his name. Anyway, they were at a prison. It's turned into a museum, and they're talking about Dick Turpin, and I was like, "Oh, do you know what? I've not heard. I've read the books of Dick Turpin when I was a child. If anybody's read them, obviously they kind of make it a lot as if he's a hero and whatever. Dick Turpin is a highwayman. He was born in the 21st of September 1705 in Hempstead. He died on the 7th of April 1739 in Knavesmire. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that properly. His name was Richard Turpin. He was baptised the 21st of September 1785, and obviously, as I said, passed away on the 7th of April 1739. He was an English highwayman whose exploits were romanticised following his execution in York for horse theft. Turpin may have followed his father's trade as a butcher early in his life, but by the early 1730s, he had joined a gang of deer thieves and later became a poacher, a burglar, horse thief, and a killer. He's also known for a fictional 200-mile, that's 320 kilometres, overnight ride from London to York on his horse Black Bess, a story that was made famous by the Victorian novelist William Harrison Ainsworth almost 100 years after Turpin's death. And it's like he was, I mean, it's like you obviously get told about or read about um, Dick Turpin when you're at school, you know. Um, so, and I've not read. I mean, it's put me in the mood for go get stories and things like that. Like a book about him now. Obviously, as I said, he was born Richard Turpin, 21st of September 1705. He was baptised in Hampstead, Essex, England. He died 7th of April 1739, aged 33, Knavesmire, York, England. Cause of death, sorry, that's just uh, a message coming through. Cause of death, execution by hanging. Other name, John Palmer. His occupations were a butcher, a poacher, a burglar, horse thief, and highwayman. A lot. His spouse was Elizabeth Millington, and it's uncertain that he had one or two children. The conviction was guilty, criminal charge, horse theft, penalty, death. Because like in the times, it's like that's what happened. And this, it doesn't that doesn't happen. You just get sent. I mean, you don't get sent to death or anything like that. The last person to get hanged in Scotland was a lady. So, and that was like in the 1950s. So that got abolished with, and it should technically just stay abolished because it's horrible. I mean, it's like I know people will agree to disagree. I don't agree with it really in America either. I mean, if they've done something so bad, let them suffer. I think that's more. I mean, because I think like that is just sentenced to death is an easy way out for that criminal. That's my thoughts and opinions on it. Turpin's involvement in the crime with which he is most closely associated, highway robbery, followed the arrest of other members of his gang in 1735. He then disappeared from public view towards the end of that year, only to resurface in 1737 with two new accomplices, one of whom Turpin may have accidentally shot and killed. Turpin fled from the scene and shortly afterwards killed a man who attempted to capture. Later that year, he moved to Yorkshire and assumed the alias of John Palmer. While he was staying at an inn, local magistrates became suspicious of Palmer and made inquiries as to how he funded his lifestyle. Suspected of being a horse thief, Palmer was imprisoned in York Castle. He tried in York Castle to be tried at the next Assizes. Turpin's true identity was revealed by a letter he wrote to his brother-in-law from his cell, which fell into the hands of authorities on the 22nd of March 1739. Turpin was found guilty in two charges on horse theft and sentenced to death. He was hanged at Knavesmire on the 7th of April 1739. Turpin became the subject of legend after his execution, romanticised as dashing and heroic in English ballads and popular theatre of the 18th and 19th centuries, and in film and television of the 20th century. And that is actually true, because it was like another Robin Hood sort of thing. So, and I get it. Obviously, people do bad things, but those people do worse. I mean, he accidentally killed somebody that was wrong. Obviously, it shows you. I mean, you can barely even see it because it's so old. The letter, it's like, well, it's the 21st of September 1705. The entry of Turpin's name in the parish baptism register for Hampstead, 5th line down. Because if you've got if you've had your child baptised, it's like it goes on the register in that church. It's like I was baptised, two of my older sons were baptised, and my youngest daughter was baptised, and their names were put in the register of the church. And obviously, it's like you give your children the option if they want to be baptised or not. I mean, my two youngest were babies, so they didn't get that option. I just wanted to anyway, do that because I was into church things then. I'm not now. Um, Turpin was born at Bluebell Inn, later the Rose and Crown, in Hampstead Exit, the fifth of six children to John Turpin and Mary Elizabeth Parmenter. He was baptised on the 21st of September in the same parish where his parents had been married more than 10 years earlier. Turpin's father was a butcher and an innkeeper. Several stories suggest that Dick Turpin may have followed his father into these trades. One hints that as a teenager he was apprenticed to a butcher in the village of Whitechapel. I mean, in these times, if children, boys, especially boys, that like the girls were, as anybody knows, they were to be homekeepers and wives and have children. It wasn't like, oh, girls go out and get work the way it is today. So you've got to be very thankful for a lot of things that's happened um, over the years. Um, so especially when it comes to our rights. I mean, because everybody's equal in this world. Nobody's better than anybody else. Yeah. While other uh, that he ran his own butcher shop in Thaxet, testimony from his trial in 1739 suggested he had a rudimentary education, and although no records survive of the date of the union, that is about 1725, he married Elizabeth Millington. Following his apprenticeship, they moved north to Berkhurst Hill, Essex, where Turpin opened a butcher shop. Turpin most likely became involved with the Essex gang of deer thieves in the early 1730s. Deer poaching had long been epidemic in the Royal Forest of Waltham, and in 1723 the Black Act, so called because it outlawed the blackening or disguising of faces while in the forest, was enacted to deal with such problems. Deer stealing was a domestic offence that was judged not in civil courts, but before justices of the peace. It was not until 1737 that the more severe penalty um, of 7 years transportation was introduced. I mean, you think if you're a farmer and you're like breeding deers or you're breeding cows or sheep and you've got people coming in and stealing or your horses. I mean, the amount of horses is, it's like, I remember there was a horse called Red Rum and it won the year I was born in 1977, and it was stolen and nobody ever knew what happened to it. Obviously, they've taken it and got a lot of money, obviously, for anyway, but that horse was worth millions and millions of pounds. So, because when you've got a good horse, it's a good runner, you let people breed the horse to try and get another mare out of it so that it makes more money for them for a good anyway. But that's not always the case because it's like if that female gets pregnant, you can maybe you get that gene to that anyway, so that horse might not be as good as its father or its mother. Do you know what I mean? So I don't like how that the the horses and all that. Horses should be free. Um, However, in 1731, 7 vereadors became so concerned by the increase of inactivity that they signed an affidavit which demonstrated their worries. The statement was lodged with the Duke of Newcastle's Secretary of State, who responded by offering a £10, equivalent to 2009 in 2025. I'm like, £10? I mean, that wasn't much then. I mean, it's a lot of money then, but equivalent if you do it now, you're just about £3,000 for a fine. Reward to anyone who helped identify thieves, plus a pardon for those thieves who gave up their colleagues. Following a series of nasty incidents, including the threatened murder of a keeper and his family in 1733, the government increased the reward to £50, equivalent to £10,294 in 2025. That's a lot of money. I mean, you think the amount of people would give up their next door neighbour, one of your family members for that amount of money, because that's a lot of money. Even in today, 2026, still a lot of money. I mean, it's like, don't touch the wildlife. Leave these animals alone. It's like, I mean, because in Scotland we used to have bears and we used to have wolves. I mean, now there's obviously trying to introduce wolves again, but leave them alone. And our deers here are very, very protected, along with our cows, especially the Highland cows. Um, they're beautiful, beautiful animals. The Essex gang, sometimes called the Gregory gang, which included Samuel Gregory, his brothers Jeremiah and, and Jasper, Joseph Rose, Mary Brazier, the gang's fence, John Jones, Thomas Rowden, and a young John Wheeler, needed contacts to help them dispose of the deer. Turpin, a young butcher who traded in the area, almost certainly became involved with their activities. By 1733, the changing fortunes of the gang may have prompted him to leave the butchery trade, and he became the landlord of a public house, which most likely the Rose and Crown at Clay Hill. Although there is no evidence to suggest that Turpin was directly involved in the thefts, by summer 1734 he was a close associate of the gang, which may indicate that he had been known to them for some time. Because it's like, I mean, a lot of people eat deer and things like that. I personally wouldn't. It's not. Wouldn't eat that. Wouldn't eat rabbit. No, no. I don't eat fish. I barely eat any. It's only like I eat chicken because it's more healthier for you. But I'm not saying I don't eat meat. I mean, eat cow's meat, but and I'm not really into bacon either. So I eat it every now and again, but I'd rather just I could leave it because I don't know, it just doesn't taste the same. But I think it's when you're older, your taste buds get different. It's just when you were a child. Um, Also, there's a picture. I mean, try to show this picture. If once I've saved up money, it'll be better to show. I can show pictures of these sort of things, like illustrations and things like that. I'll get my son to teach me things like that. Um, but because obviously I put the computer I want that's going to help me do things like that and put up things, um, which will be a lot better. It'll be better thumbnails and things like that. So one thing, still waiting for them to help me get a better mic, as well. Because obviously I accidentally got the wrong one because it didn't wait for them to help me. But never mind. One step at a time. By October 1734, Several in the gang had either been captured or had fled, and the remaining members moved away from poaching, raiding the home of a chandler and grocer named Peter Split at Woodford. Although the identities of the perpetrators are unknown, Turpin may have been involved. 2 nights later, they struck again at the Woodford home of a gentleman named Richard Woolridge, a furnisher of small arms in the Office of Ordnance at the Tower of London. In December, Jasper, Samuel, and Gregory, John Jones, and John Wheeler attacked the home of John Gladwin, a higgler. I don't know what that is, and John Shockley in Chingford. On the 19th of December, Turpin and 5 other men raided the home of Ambrose Skinner, a 73-year-old farmer from Barking, leaving with an estimated £300, equivalent to £58,513 in 2025. Oh my God. Wow, that's a lot of money. I mean, I know it was a lot of money then, but wow, that's enough to put money down for a mortgage. I mean, I remember meeting the people that bought this house before my landlord, and he said he only bought it for like £100 or something like that. So he did. His family bought it for, and now they want all sorts for it. 2 days later, the gang, minus Turpin, attacked the home of a keeper, William Mason, at Epping Forest. During the robbery, Mason's servant managed to escape and returned about an hour later with several neighbours, by which time the house was ransacked and thieves long gone. On the 11th of January 1735, the gang raided Charlton home of Mr. Saunders for a robbery of a gentleman named Sheldon. 1 week later, at Croydon, Turpin arrived masked and armed with pistols with 4 other members of the gang. In the same month, 2 men, possibly from the same gang, raided the home of a Reverend Mr. Wright. The clergyman was absent, but the two cut his manservant around the face in a barbarous manner. Another brutal attack occurred on the 1st of February 1735 at Loudon. On Saturday, on Saturday night last, about 7 o'clock, 5 rogues entered the house of the widow Shelley at Loudon, Essex, having pistols, etc., and threatened to murder the old lady if she would not tell them where her money lay, which she obstinately refusing for some time. They threatened to lay her across the fire if she did not instantly tell them, which she would not do. But her son, being in the room and threatened to be murdered, cried out he would tell them if they would not murder his mother, and did, whereupon they upstairs and took near £100, a silver tankard and other plate, and all manner of household goods. The afterwards went into the cellar and drank several bottles of ale and wine, and broiled some meat, ate the relics of a fillet of veal, etc. While they were doing this, 2 of their gang went to Mr. Turkle's, a farmer's, who rents one end of the widow's house, and robbed him of above £20. And then they all went off, taking 2 of the farmer's horses to carry off the luggage. The horses were found on Sunday for the following morning in Old Street and stayed about 3 hours in the house. That was obviously the report from a weekly journal, the 8th of February 1735. And obviously showing a picture of where the, the gang were in the forest. The gang lived in or around London for For a time, Turpin stayed at Whitechapel before moving to Millbank. On the 4th of February 1735, he met John Fielder, Samuel Gregory, Joseph Rose, and John Wheeler at an inn along the Broadway in London. They planned to rob the house of Joseph Lawrence, a farmer at Aylesbury Farm in Egworth. Late that afternoon, after stopping twice along the way for food and drink, they captured a shepherd boy and burst into the house armed with pistols. They bound the two maid servants and brutally attacked the 70-year-old farmer. They pulled his breeches around his ankles and dragged him around the house, but Lawrence refused to reveal whereabouts of his money. Turpin beat Lawrence's bare buttocks with pistols, badly bruising him, and other members of the gang beat him around the head with their pistols. They emptied a kettle of water over his head, forced him to sit bare buttocked on the fire, and pulled him around the house by his nose and hair. Gregory took one of the maid servants upstairs and graped her for the trouble. Other trouble, the gang escaped with a haul of less than £30, equivalent to £5,618 in 2025. 3 days later, Turpin, accompanied by the same men, along with William Saunders and Humphrey Walker, brutally raided a farm in Marybone, Marybone. I don't know if I pronounced that properly. The attack netted the gang just under £90, equivalent to £16,854 in 2025. The next day, the Duke of Newcastle offered a reward of £50, equivalent of £9,363 in 2025, in exchange for information leading to the conviction of the several persons involved in the two Woodford robberies and the robberies of the widow Shelley and Reverend Hyde. On the 11th of February, Fielder, Saunders and Wheeler were apprehended. Two accounts of their capture exist. Two claims that on their way to rob the Lawrence household, the gang had stopped at an alehouse in Egworth, and that on the 11th of February, while out walking, the owners noticed a group of horses outside an alehouse in Bloomsbury. He recognised these horses and those used by the same group of men who had stopped at his alehouse before the Lawrence attack. Now remember, they didn't have phones back then, or internet or anything like that. Lawrence and called for the parish constable. Another account claims that two of the gang were spotted by a servant of Joseph Lawrence. Regardless, the three who were drinking with a woman, possibly Mary Brazier, were promptly arrested and committed to prison. Wheeler, who may have been as young as 15, quickly portrayed his colleagues, and descriptions of those yet to be captured were circulated in the press in the London Gazette. Turpin, described as Richard Turpin, a butcher by trade, a tall, fresh-coloured man, very much marked with the smallpox, about 26 years of age, about 5 feet 9 inches high, lived some time ago in Whitechapel and did later lodge somewhere about Millbank, Westminster, wears a blue-grey coat and an actual wig. I'll leave it there because I actually quite enjoy reading that. I'm going to send love and light, but please, again, just an idea, if you've got animals, please do that. Or if I've got a back garden, leave some water out for birds and things like that, if you can, so that they're not getting all dry and things like that. But, send love and light, and good night.